Is it live? Oh, it is live. Hi, Lorraine. Welcome to Venture with Grace.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, such a wait. By the way, everyone should get this book. So let's start with your journey on becoming an author. So I was like binging through your other podcasts. I think one of the things that I took away that like I thought were like exactly what I thought was okay. So how am I gonna? I'm so sorry. I'm like my brain's completely dead. But okay, so I think you were at Prezi, and then when you got let go, and then back in time you thought like corporate job was like very secure, same as me. My like biggest goal was to just like becoming like a CEO of a Fortune 500 company when I'm
Sure,
like
yeah.
57 or something.
Yeah.
But nowadays I feel like there's no security in anything, so you have to build a personal presence on the internet or like in person.
Mhm.
One thing I've learned that yesterday I was like listening to your other podcast, it was like, you're supposed to say because so to make you feel like stronger and use we instead of I did XYZ. So why don't we start with like maybe you can tell us a little bit more about like how do you grow up and then like how do you kind of like stumble upon this journey of becoming a presence influencer. And
Sure. Yeah, so, um, yeah, where I am now, I would not have expected. As you mentioned, I used to be in tech, so I studied journalism, and then entered the tech world, which in itself was like a funny, unexpected jump. And so I spent a decade of my career leading editorial team. So I was a founding editor at LinkedIn. Most recently, I was a founding editor at Prezi. And as you said, Grace, I got laid off at the end of 2022. And yeah, it was quite a shock, and I had to figure out, okay, do I want to apply for another job? Do I maybe want to go out on my own? Because while I was at Prezi, I started doing a little bit of public speaking. I became a LinkedIn learning instructor. So that was my first taste of making money outside of the corporate world. And so I saw, yeah, it was
I
possible.
want to say, like, I just want to say, I literally did not know that LinkedIn Learning you can make money. I thought it was just like a public service.
Yeah,
It's like a lot of our like CAP program people made LinkedIn
yeah.
Learning courses, but you made like 80 something courses, right?
No, no, no.
15. It
I've
was
not,
15. It was
I've
15.
not, yeah, I've 19 out, and my 20th is on the way. Yeah.
Well, congrats. Wow, that's a
Thank
lot
you.
of them. Wait, I didn't know that that's like actual like I mean I just thought it was like oh like LinkedIn provides a studio and stuff, but I didn't know it was like an actual you can profit from it. But yeah, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, so it's amazing, and yeah, it's fun to stay close to LinkedIn in that way, and yeah, so I decided to start my business at the beginning of 2023, Rise Learning Solutions, and I continued to do my speaking. I continued to teach with LinkedIn Learning at Stanford. I started doing brand deals, and then at the end of, I think it was the end of my first year of business. Yeah, end of first year of business. Wiley reached out to me on LinkedIn, and they asked, "Have you ever thought about writing a book?" And I had, and yeah, it was just so exciting. And then you still have like imposter syndrome, and you're like, "Oh, it's now the right time. I just started my business." But then a few other publishers started reaching out, and I just said that, this is the universe telling me it's time to write this book. And so from about March to November, I wrote the book, and then November to February was editing it. And then that was February of this year to April of this year, they were printing it. And
Mhm.
so the book came out, yeah, April 22nd.
Wow. I mean, tell us
Long,
more about
yeah.
the journey. I love this. Like, I really love like the co-founder door that she's like endorsing this book. But okay, so tell us more about like, okay, so why don't we start with when you were writing the book, like did you like always been like blogging? Obviously you're a writer yourself, you're like a chief editor, but like how do you kind of like collect these pieces of information? I feel like I have a book in me. Like, well, I have wrote some books, but those are more like interview based or like other
Yeah.
people's story kind of thing. But it's not more about like, my own thing. But I know that you also interview Kim Scott and like some other people. So how do you think about like book writing as a process? And then how do you think about like what you want to write about?
Mhm. It took some time. So actually when I first started my business, I joined this self-publishing book cohort because I like the idea was in my head, but I just, I was like, okay, there's nothing going on. I just started my business. Let me come up with the idea. And I started outlining, and I used the word outline very generously. I just realized how hard it was. I was like, I don't know what the idea is here. I talk about all these different things, but I'm not sure how to bring it together. But by the time Wiley reached out, I'd been a year in business. I'd been posting more regularly on LinkedIn. I had been speaking at companies. So at that point, I had more of a sense of, okay, I do like speaking on all these different things, LinkedIn presence, video presence, meetings, presentations, etc. What's like the umbrella topic that sort of encompasses all these things? And I realized that presence was the thing, professional presence, and not just in terms of, executive presence, but presence a little bit more holistically. That was like my unique take on it. And I define it as both how and where you are seen. And I thought,
Mhm.
oh, okay, I think there's something here, because presence, of course, how you show up, like that's really important. But now we had entered this, and are now in this space where, okay, the virtual side of things, the video presence, people will tell me, oh, Lorraine, you have such a strong LinkedIn presence, and I'm like, oh, okay, so people are now forming impressions of you even before they've met you. And so that's sort of how the idea came to be. But it wasn't like an overnight thing where I knew, like, oh my gosh, I have this idea. And then in time, like, you asked, like, how did I get all the content? Like, writing on LinkedIn was super helpful. I have a newsletter, writing that was super helpful. And it was really more about, okay, I have all the content. What do I want to leave out? And how do I organize this so that it makes sense and has a flow?
Mhm. I want to quickly say hi to the audience. Hi, Adris. Hi, Mimid. Okay, so sorry if I pronounced someone's name wrong. But okay, so I think like when I was like reading part of your book and then like when I was like processing for myself, I think like you, I used to think if I just sit down and then do my work, then people would
Yeah.
see it. But
Yeah.
obviously nowadays, like it's almost the opposite. If you don't broadcast your work, no one cares, like in
Yeah.
general. And
Yeah.
I was like taking the Gen Z advice, like people were saying that like if you send a Slack message or someone thumbs up on your status, you gotta screenshot it and then put it in the performance review. I feel like nowadays, like we're at that era,
Yeah.
so why don't we start with like what is presence for you
Yeah.
and how do you, I guess, like walk the balance of like being seen but not being that super cringe guy who was like doing everything all together?
As I mentioned, presence is so much bigger than what I think we normally think of it as. And I think that was helpful for me, because normally when you hear presence, you think executive presence, how I'm showing up in a room, I'm of a certain seniority level, and that can feel, I don't know, like kind of distant or like maybe a little bit intimidating. And so what I wanted to say was presence is actually all these smaller moments and important moments that happen throughout our careers, throughout a given day, and it's something that should be worked on at all points, not just when we reach a certain level or when we are striving for that promotion. So to me, presence is both how and where you are seen. So executive presence is just one piece of that. Um, and so, yeah, that's like, I think the thing that I realized I was missing when I was at LinkedIn, like really pushing hard, putting my head down, like working on all the important projects, but not getting seen. And to your point, especially now, like we are all over the place. We are remote, we're distributed, we're in person. And so it is really important because we are distracted and everyone is really busy. And now companies are and managers and employees are being tasked with doing more with less, right? So there's just so much going on. And so in order to make sure that we are being seen, we do have to be really intentional about it and make sure that we are talking about our work. And it does not have to be obnoxious, right? Like I'm more introverted. So the idea of talking and just being like loud about it all the time is very stressful. But
Mhm.
there are ways that we can position things and frame our work and make sure that it's being seen by the right people is really the important thing, right? We don't want to just like shout it for the sake of shouting it, but making sure that we're being strategic about it. And that's really about taking ownership of your career, becoming the CEO of your own career, as I talk about in the book.
For sure. You have talked about the epic framework,
Mhm.
and I want to maybe do a like a quick spin on it because like a lot of our listeners are VCs or like founders. So a lot of them have zero presence on social media or like they are, yeah, like I think especially for the ones that are building, like when you were saying
Sure.
like ICS
Yeah.
32 or something, or like
Yeah,
20,
yeah.
sorry, not 32, like we're not at 2023, or like we're not at 2032 yet. But so basically, when like a lot of people's like presence, okay,
Mhm.
so I think I want to take a step back. So, like, if I have zero follower on LinkedIn or Twitter or like anywhere on social media, like, where should I go first? And then what should I post about? So, like, I have a lot of I'm a small angel investor in some companies, and then a lot of people ask me, "Hey, how do you build like a LinkedIn following and stuff like that?" But since you have way bigger following, I wanted to learn from you on like, how do you think about it from scratch? Like if you have 0 followers like today, where would you go and then what would you say?
Mhm. Yeah, I have some frameworks in the book to help with that because to your point, like you're like, okay, I want to start, but where do I even start? Like,
Yeah.
there's so much you can do. So, I LinkedIn is my platform of choice. I know that there's a lot of founders on X as well, but I'll speak to the LinkedIn side of things. So, the first thing I would think about is, kind of a mindset shift. I think a lot of people think that they have to have the most original idea or unique idea to post. And what
Mhm,
I always tell people is that nothing on LinkedIn is original.
mhm,
It's about the person
mhm,
who's posting it that you connect with and want to hear more from, or it's about their unique experience or their take. So hopefully that
mhm,
alleviates some of the pressure for anyone who wants to post but is a little bit nervous to post.
mhm,
The second thing I would do is even before you post is
mhm,
start commenting.
mhm.
Comments are still content.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's still a very great way to grow a following, to hone your expertise, to build your confidence, getting your voice out there. Now, the thing with comments is we don't want to have the "I agree, that's great,
oh man,
congrats" comment.
it's like emoji all the time. So
Yeah, we wanna, like, aim for, like, at least 15 words, right? That means that you're adding a little something so that someone, if they see your comment, can understand, "Oh, Grace has expertise in this," or "This person, oh, I'm interested in what they have to say, I'm gonna follow them." So comments are really key. And then the third thing I would say when you start thinking about, "Okay, what type of content do I want to post?" I talk about 3 categories: personal, professional, educational.
mhm,
Personal, telling your own story, your challenges, experiences. Professional, commenting on something in the news or something happening in your industry, and then educational, let me teach you about something. Now, most people will start in educational or professional because those are a little bit easier. Personal, you have to reveal some more of yourself, which might take some time, but ideally you're mixing all three. And I think from a founder's point of view, people love the personal, they love the building in public, they love to see the behind the scenes. So, as comfortable as you feel sharing that, I would say to share more of that.
yeah, I have a question here. By the way, I wanted to shout out to LinkedIn user who have bought your Audible book. Love that. Okay, so I'm also an Audible person. I feel like, I wonder. So, can you like unpack a little bit more about like personal stuff? So, I think one of the stuff that I find challenging is like, do I share my failures? Do I share everything, or like, will that make me feel weak? So like I was in like leadership and tech. I feel like a lot of especially like our male cohort peers like were really worried. Okay, so if I share my failure, it make me look less, and will people feel, sure, people will feel like relatable, but it also gave me a little bit less credit. How do you walk the line with being vulnerable, but also not like oversharing? Oh, by the way, hi, Wenli. Okay, so yeah.
Thank you, Wen.
Love that
So
stuff. Yeah.
amazing. So yes, there's a line, right? It's not like we're gonna just spew out every failure that has happened. The way to do it is if you're going to share a failure, you want to share the learning from it,
Mhm.
or you need to bundle it with the success that comes afterwards. Like, we're not gonna just be posting failure, 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 failure. That's not attractive for someone or appealing for someone to look at.
Mhm.
But, "Oh, I failed, here was the learning. I failed, but now I ended up here." That's a success story. And so that gives people, okay, you are being genuine and they wanna listen to you because you actually got somewhere, right? It's not like I'm just talking about only my failures. So to your point, it needs to have that balance, either the learning or you need to be successful enough or have a success story that comes out of it so
Mhm.
that is not just you associated with only failures, but you're more of like a success story from that failure.
For sure. I wonder, so like since we talk about like building an audience, like do you see like your audience grow like way faster when you're posting a certain type of content, or like do you feel like it's more of like a consistency game? Like you mentioned like commenting, I think there's another influencer that have like, you know, I guess like six figure followers, six figure followers,
Ah,
mentioned
nice.
how like he would like spending like he would like every day he would come on like literally 50 posts or something or like 100 posts or like something crazy
Yeah.
number. And I just felt like a lot of times like people are busy, and then obviously I personally don't believe in bot comments. Like I feel
Sure.
like a lot of these like comments that you can tell it's like AI generated, but
Mhm.
how do you do the thoughtful comment but also bake it into a behavior for you to actually being able to execute in your like day-to-day life?
It's hard when we put certain numbers to it, like, "Oh, I have to do, like, 50 a day." Yeah, like, some days you're gonna be busy and maybe you don't have time to comment, and that's okay. But I do think it is helpful to have a goal. 50 is a lot of people, so maybe you don't strive for 50,
Mhm.
at the beginning, but you wanna be this whole thing is about being strategic, and a theme throughout my book is about being intentional. So, okay, what's realistic for me? Let me set the bar low. I'm gonna comment on 3 posts that I see today, and let me make sure that these are the right people who have similar audiences to me or maybe speak on a similar thing, basically borrowing, right, someone else's audience or their followers. And then let me build from there. Same as with posting on LinkedIn. Like I always say, start with like a goal of like once a month. We can all do once a month. Okay, now I can do twice a month. And you build up from there. People, I think where it gets really stressful is when, yeah, you have these really high goals or expectations, and then you're like feeling like you're always on a treadmill, chasing that. I think consistency is important, but also not burning out is important.
For sure, I totally agree with you. I feel like star is better than not star. A lot of times it's like you gradually grew into the spot that you want to
Yeah.
go, but like you start with like something that is kind of doable. One thing I thought was very impressive was like on your website, you have spoke at like many different top tech companies,
Mhm,
including Zoom, Cisco, McKinsey, and more.
mhm.
So why don't we talk about like, I think number one is like from a corporate level, like what do people generally want to learn from? Like since like I think presence is very important for leaders, but like how do you I guess like put it into like a I guess like an educational format for people to
Yeah.
implement. The other part is like as a founder, I feel like it's very impressive to land these like great brands to like speak there. I guess
Mhm,
like how do you advise people that are like maybe in like a different niche who are also packaging their thought and leadership into a like educatable course or like educatable talk?
mhm. So to answer the first half of your question, the topics that have been most popular that I teach about are how to build influence, executive presence, building a brand at work. That's actually been the most popular. More companies are wanting to learn about how to have their employees build their own LinkedIn presence. So, virtual presence is still a popular one, and how to communicate well virtually. So, a lot of different topics again that fall under that presence umbrella. So, really depending on what the goals are, those are the ones though that I see to be the most popular. And to your point, like
Mhm,
sometimes, for me, like I'm big on frameworks. You see that there's a lot of frameworks in the book.
mhm.
I always try to ground things into the tactical because topics like presence, topics like influence, can be like very just subjective, and you're like, "Okay, I know I want it, but, like, what is it? How do
Yeah.
I get it?" And so I'm always grounding things. So, like, influence, I have the RAVE model, relationships, appearances, visibility, expertise. Brand building, I have the EPIC career brand framework. Executive presence, I have the 3 Cs. So that's how I go about presenting the information and what I enjoy, doing, because I know there are, like, also very high level talks more conceptually, but I like grounding things, more in actions that people can take right away and build their confidence right away. And then, to answer your second question, was it more around, like, how to kind of build up a roster of clients essentially?
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
also, like, I guess, like, how do you package your thought into, like, a climbable package?
Mm,
Because I think a lot of people, they may not be, like, a presence expert, but they may be, like, a finance expert or someone who's great at, I don't know, like, doing, like, Excel sheets, right? Or, like, so, like, everybody have some sort of work that they're like perfectly good at, but like how do you kind of like first of all like package it as like something that's like meaningful for the corporate to like consider it as a viable service or like product that you could like package to clients basically.
I think it really depends on what you like doing. So there are people who speaking, I think, is usually like a good entryway into a company, but there's people who sell courses or license courses. There are people who only speak. There are people who speak and then later upsell into courses. So I think it really depends what you're passionate about. Some course creators don't like doing the 1 hour keynote. So you have to find what makes sense for you. And then in terms of finding the clients, a lot of those first speaking engagements I had, and for anyone who's looking for clients, are going to be people in your network. Now,
Mhm,
the thing is it's awkward. It can feel uncomfortable to ask for help,
mhm.
but those are going to be the people who say, "Oh yeah, let me bring you in," or "I know this person," or "Let me introduce you to that person." And so that willingness to put yourself out there and to ask for the help, I think that's a really important trait you need as an entrepreneur.
For sure. Quickly shout out to Alexander. Yes, his goal is 4 thoughtful comments today or each day. Okay, amazing. Love.
Alex, hi.
Okay, so I wonder, another thing about like I was like recalling what I've learned from your other like content. One part I thought was really interesting was like the email haiku, and then the other part is in like the virtual world, like when people, let's say, jump on a Zoom call and then decided to, I don't know, eat a stuff or like, I don't know, check their other emails or something.
Sure.
Like making you feel like you are less of a priority.
Mhm.
Um, I think everybody do that at some point because people are coming in like a busy life. I feel like I'm always like zoning out on life, but um, how I guess like one part is like since like our audience are very startup slash investor driven, I think a lot of people are taking back to back meetings all day. And like I also find very challenging to like sometimes like you small talk for like 5 minutes, but it's just like actually necessary. Like how do you think about like building a presence that's like quickly jump into the topic and then also save people's time, but also being polite, not like, this awkward person who is like, opening up with like a line of items.
Sure,
Uh,
sure.
what's your advice on people creating a powerful presence, but also like effective, efficient, but also not like rude?
Yeah. To your point, we are back to back. It's hard to not show up kind of tired or just distracted, but it is really important that we do our best to show up as our best selves on
Mhm.
those calls. And so, even if you might be back to back, I think you can take a moment to take a deep breath, to think of a positive memory of something funny, someone who makes you smile, and that energy gets felt on video and
How about
get
resting business face? Resting business
Oh,
face.
business date? Yeah, yeah, yeah. The neutral slash angry expression. Yeah. So you want to avoid that and you want to look happy and you want to give off a positive energy on the call. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say to your question about small talk is that small talk does get a bad rap because small talk, when done on autopilot, is really painful and not fun. And what autopilot small talk is if we get on a call and if you ask me a question, if you can predict my response, and my question back, like, "How are you? I'm good. How are you? I'm good." End of conversation. That's not great, right? We didn't get to know each other. We just went through the motions. Nothing really happened.
Mhm.
Instead, we want to break out of autopilot small talk. And again, it just takes a few small tweaks. That's the kind of the theme throughout the book is that presence is a few, small tweaks throughout and it becomes a lot more powerful. But instead, focusing on asking more interesting questions and then answering with more interesting responses using this concept of conversational threading. So instead of asking you, Grace, "Oh, how was your weekend?" And you're going to say, "Oh, it was good. How was yours?"
Mhm.
I might ask you, "Oh, what was the highlight of your weekend, Grace? Like, what was the most fun thing that you did?" And now you have to pause for a second and you have to think and actually give me something that I can go off of, right? "Oh, I did X, Y, and Z." "Oh, okay. Now X, Y, and Z, I can follow up on one of those three things." And now we have a little bit more conversation. We've gotten to know each other a little bit better. And again, it doesn't need to be a 5-10 minute conversation, but just a little moment for us to get to know each other a little bit better because small talk is one of the best ways that we build relationships and develop rapport.
For sure. What if you're in like an awkward conversation with someone and then you're like, you can't really end it, but like it's kind of like awkward. Like, or like, I guess like, what if you're in a meeting with a bunch of people and then, or like, I guess like there's always happening, it probably always happening at like some sort of like socializing at work.
Working, yeah.
Oh, you're supposed to say something to this person, but on the other hand, like you were kind of running out of topics, or like the person have absolutely nothing to say to you. Like, what
Sure.
do you avoid these like kind of weird
Yeah.
situations, but also be like polite and just like,
Yeah, basically
be
how to end a conversation tactfully.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
there's a few things you can do. So, if you're feeling like the conversation is awkward, they probably feel the conversation is awkward too. So, I'm sure they will appreciate first, just remember, they're gonna appreciate if you find a way to close out the conversation. I don't think anyone's going to think it's rude, they're gonna be relieved, like, "Oh, Grace just closed this out, thank God." But what things you can do are, one is what I've done before is, "Oh, it was so, really great talking to you. I'm gonna run to the bathroom or I'm gonna go get another drink. Like, I'll see you around." That can be one thing. Another thing that's gonna make the person feel really good is, "Oh, I wanna make sure that I'm not stopping you from meeting other people, but before we go, I wanna just follow up on that one thing you said earlier." So now they're feeling like, "Oh, you listened to me. I'm gonna just talk a little bit more, share a little bit more, and I know now that you are going to gracefully, leave the conversation afterwards." So those are 2 strategies that you can try.
Love that. I love that people are sending in from YouTube too. Hi, Samira. Okay, so I wonder, so when you are thinking about like the 3C for leadership, why don't we
Mhm.
talk about like what's the difference between like a leadership presence and like a regular presence? And we can jump into the, tricks that you could make yourself feel powerful.
Mhm. I I think all anytime you think of your presence, I think you should, hopefully be trying to be viewed as more of a leader because that's what helps you advance.
Mhm,
With leadership presence, you might be of a certain seniority level, but it's not to say that if you're not a leader that you cannot have presence. And
mhm,
so I think really like what differentiates just maybe your everyday presence from like a leadership presence is the mindset piece of it. And that's why I talk about mindset so early on in my book. I think it's chapter 1 right after the introduction because it's so important to realize like okay, I need to become the CEO of my own career. I need to be intentional. I need to be strategic. I can control certain outcomes or I can control what I can control. And my problem was when I was at LinkedIn, I kept letting things happen to me.
mhm,
And if we want to succeed, if we want to accelerate our careers, we need to be taking that initiative and to be putting ourselves out there and making ourselves known and meeting other colleagues and all the things that you have to do at work, right? That make us that allow us to connect on a human level. So for me, you can achieve your presence and kind of go about your day and have a strong presence, but that leadership presence I think is really taking it to that next level of okay, I'm being like super proactive here. I have a goal in mind and I'm going to act like a leader even if I don't have the title.
for sure. I wonder when you are writing your book,
Mhm,
who would you say was the initial audience? So obviously now the book could be benefiting
mhm.
anyone and everyone who's having a presence in life. But I guess like when you're first creating the product, hi Mohammed. So I guess like how do you think about like who was the first like 1,000 true fan,
Mhm.
or like maybe just one true fan? Like, people always say, oh, you just imagine you're like writing to one guy or girl or
Yeah.
something. Like, how do you think about packaging into a product? So also like this is such a, I think like anyone at work would be able to benefit from it. But on the other hand, um, I guess like at the very beginning, how did you kind of go about it?
To your point, it is really important to come up with that person, and I didn't do it right away because I was like, "Yeah, everyone," yeah, like you said, like everyone can benefit from this, but it is important, I think, to speak to that one reader. It really was me in my 20s and like early on in my career. It's like the book I wish I had for myself, and then a little bit more broadly, it was really that mid-career person who works super hard, who knows they have all this potential, but it's just not being fulfilled. So how can I help that person make that leap from mid-career to senior level? Because that is, I think, one of the hardest leaps that can happen in corporate or that exists in corporate. And so that's how I thought about it a little bit more. And you'll see even in the beginning of the book, I talk about this book is for these people, but it also benefits earlier career folks. It benefits more senior people for these reasons. But yeah, it is important to have that focus so that whether it's in your marketing materials, whether it's in what you're writing, it is a little bit more targeted and can speak to a specific audience.
I wonder, so like what are, I guess, like if you are a founder
Mhm.
or investor, like when you're like jumping into the first investor call, even for investor, there's LPs, so basically investors, like how do you dress yourself and what would be one thing on your checklist each time when you actually got out of the door to pitch someone?
Yeah. Is this in person or virtual? Or both?
Let's go with in person since we talk about virtual briefly.
Okay. In terms of what you wear, I err on the side of dressing up versus dressing down. I know in Silicon Valley, maybe, some people are okay. Maybe people like it when you're extra casual. But I think, people are forming impressions, whether subconsciously or consciously, very, very quickly. So as many signals as you can give them that you are here, that you are serious, that you know what you're doing, I think that's always a good thing. In person, I would say one of the things that I am still experiencing in networking events is the dead fish handshake.
Mhm.
Very unappealing to grab that.
Oh yeah. Wait, I
So
all the time. I'm like,
you
I don't know. It's like a fist bump, but also when people are shaking my hand, I just do it immediately.
they gotta have like a strong handshake. So I think that's like an important first
Oh my
impression. And
god.
then you alluded to this earlier. It's like on a call, like when you're distracted doing something else, when you're in person, like so many of us are on our phones. So to not have the phone out, don't have it around, like that's something again subconsciously that distracts people. Put it away. Don't be on your phone. Like, oh, 1 second, let me just send off this text. Okay, hi, I'm here. No, just enter in strong. You're focused. You're present. I think that's going to be one of the best ways to set off any meeting on the right foot.
But what if like the other person's on the phone? Like I was
Well, then
at,
that's annoying. Yeah.
yeah, wow, like actually like I had gone on like a lunch with someone that I know and like the person was like half of the time on the computer. I'm like, wait, are we serious? But the person also arrived an hour early. I'm like, what is this move? Like, this is like very intense. Like, bro, you came an hour early, and then while we're having lunch, the person was like literally on the computer for like 30 minutes. I was like, wow, are we serious here? So I don't know
That's
how to deal with it.
crazy.
It's like obviously I really like these people. Maybe they're just like so like casual about it because they're like, oh, I already know you for 5 years, but like not
Mhm.
5 years, but like I already kind of know you. It's not like our first time meeting each other, but still, I'm like, I'm confused.
I would have stopped, and I sometimes do this with my friends
Yeah.
too. If they pick up their phone and start texting while I'm with them, and I'll just stop talking. And I'll sometimes be like, "Oh, is there something important? Like, is everything okay?" Just to, like, show them that I'm registering that you're on your phone, and I'm not gonna keep talking to you while you're not focused on me. I think that's not showing, mutual respect, and so that would be what I would do. But yeah, I don't know if I would have been as graceful as you, in that moment.
No, no, I mean, I did the complete opposite. I basically also put up my phone. I was like, since like we're already here, I need to like draft out like 3 response email to like that's like each one's this long. So let's go for like a co-working session, I guess. It
Yeah,
was
it transformed from a catch up to a co-working session.
fun. How do you think about, I guess, like presence in how does presence influence you on a financial level? So in the startup land, there's like fundraising, but in the corporate land, there's like your salary. Um, is there any like studies or kind of like data that kind of translate that, you are a powerful person at work, your presence that kind of like equals to, 3x your salary, or like how does that kind of like relate to each other?
I think the where piece of the presence is very important in this instance because again, like we all focus on the how piece, like how are we being seen, but we're not focused as much on the where are we being seen by the right people at the right times in the right spaces. And so whether you are fundraising, whether you are trying to get a raise at work, every touch point is so important. So your LinkedIn,
Mhm.
your Slack profile picture? Do you have a profile picture uploaded to your video conferencing platform? We want people to recognize us, to know who we are, to associate our face with our name, and we want a consistent experience across all these places. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I would say that's like the key thing and what's missing a lot of the time. Like I know this, I talked to someone once and they were like, oh, I met this person in person, the CEO. He was so impressive. And then I went to his LinkedIn and it was like barren. Like there was like no profile picture. There was like nothing there. Disconnect. Now I'm not sure if I'm thinking like, was this person as impressive as I thought? Because now this is not lining up. So making sure we have consistency across all the places where our presence is felt, I think is going to be the best strategy for impressing people and staying top of mind.
I wonder, so like, how much would you say would be you would invest into online versus offline? I think right now, since like I feel like everybody work like the 10-hour workday or like 8-hour workday, and 90% people that we know are on a computer. So I think I myself think like online presence sometimes is a more important than offline presence, because a lot of times it's just like in the end of the day you stay in touch online. Like how many times are you actually going to meet someone face to face, right? In today's day and age, unless it's
Yeah.
like your immediate coworker that's like the 5 people on your team, you're not going to meet the rest of the crew like for every single day, right? So I wonder, like, I think that probably goes a lot more into commenting or like something that's like an interaction online. I've met people that are, like, super amazing offline, but they're, like, have 0 online presence. So, I like it's just, like, really hard to stay in touch. But on the other hand, I've seen people that are like, I mean, I saw you, like, at a party and then you didn't even wave,
Yeah.
but online, we're BFFs. So how do you kind of, like, walk the line of, like, being a consistent guy or girl on the internet and also in real life?
I agree that I think online is really important and maybe even more important to your point. Like we're not really meeting people as much in person. And in my book, I have, the first three chapters are the foundational skills. I talk about mindset and career brand, and then I talk about video presence, and then I talk about LinkedIn presence. And there's a reason why I talk about video and LinkedIn so early on, even though those are both virtual mediums, because that's how people are seeing us. That's how they're engaging with us.
Mhm.
There's something so powerful too about LinkedIn where people have said to me before meeting, "Oh, wow, you have a really strong LinkedIn presence."
Yeah.
And they have a positive impression of me even without having met me.
Mhm.
That's a very powerful thing, right? That people are forming these impressions and having a positive idea of who you are, and they're impressed by you. And so I do think virtual is worth emphasizing. I think it can be your biggest competitive advantage because like you said, Grace, like not everyone focuses on creating a nice virtual setup. Not everyone bothers to be on LinkedIn, but those are the places to be and where we will continue to be. And so, yeah, I mean, in person, like you still want to show up well and be presentable, but really like the majority of our interactions happen online.
I wonder, so like I guess like how do you imagine your own persona? So I think building a presence nowadays, like I think about like how I'm doing it, it's kind of like passive. It's like, oh, today I think of like 3 things I need to post today. And there's no like super strategic thought structure sometimes towards of what we post. A lot of times it's just like if someone say, hey, can you like repost whatever this is? And then I'm like reposting without even thinking a lot. It's just more of a like, oh, I'm doing this guy or girl a favor. That's it. And then I'm not really like super self-conscious about like what does people see in me, right? And then but on the other hand, there's a lot of people that think a lot. Like they don't post anything. They post one thing in like 5 years and waiting for 500 likes and then call it a day.
Yeah.
And how do you think about creating an image, and what kind of image, like I guess like do you have in mind that like you can translate that into like a day-to-day content agenda basically?
I do think consistency is really important. So yeah, there's maybe some people, maybe they're more senior, they post, everyone's already following them because they're the CEO of, somewhere. So yeah, naturally they're going to get a lot of engagement. But I do think consistency is important. And I do not think that you need to have the strategy laid out ahead of time. And I think that's another thing that stops people from posting like, oh, I need to know who's my ideal audience, like what are my key topics, et cetera, et cetera. That puts a lot of pressure on ourselves. I think it's already so hard mentally to put yourself out there on LinkedIn. So what I like to say is it's about experimenting. Okay, write down a few things that you're passionate about talking about, start posting, see what people engage with, see what you like talking about, what you have enough to say about.
Mhm.
And then you're going to slowly but surely find out, okay, this is like my area that I want to focus on. Or like me, like I thought I had to be really focused and I realized, no, I like talking about all these different things. I have something to say about all these things. So I'm going to find a way to categorize them, which I did under the umbrella of professional presence. And that's going to be my thing. And so I think, yeah, it's don't put so much pressure on yourself to come up with a strategy. I think you want to be consistent, whatever consistent looks like to you, so that people know to expect content. And then something amazing happens too as you start posting more. It's like you really find your voice and you build your confidence. So whether you're working for a company or you're doing your own thing, like that confidence that you get from LinkedIn will translate into all those other aspects of life, which I
Mhm.
did not expect as I started doing this, but it's been a pleasant surprise.
Mm. I want to dive in a little bit more on the business side of things.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people, there's a, like a lot of coach on LinkedIn, right? So like a lot of them have, like a 5 figure following, but um how do they step up to like actually create a business out of it? Because like obviously I feel like you're very successful at it. You have done, let's say you're like a 4x figure at Google, or like, you have done talks at multiple companies multiple times. How do you come up with stuff that's like the 7 times that are like different each time?
Mhm.
And how do you think about like being a repetitively contribute to the conversation at these like top tech companies?
Mentioned before, I have all these different talks. So I think it's most important to get your foot in the door. So you do the one talk, you really impress them, and then hopefully they bring you in for more. Or sometimes they want something custom because now they really like you and they know your style. Speakers or speaking is interesting because companies
Mhm,
they don't usually bring in a speaker like every year for many, many years because they want to hear new voices and get new faces. So I'd actually say that speaking is not the most recurring type of business. And instead, it is important recurring income, so or recurring revenue. So finding those other places where you can do that, whether it's a course, whether it's a membership, I don't know, a paid newsletter. Like there's a lot of other avenues, and I think diversifying your income is also a very good idea. But
mhm.
something I'm doing now and working on is, okay, I have all these things I'm working on, and then what can I like what's like the one thing I can funnel them towards? And so I'm actually working on building a course and a master class so that when I do all these engagements and the consulting and the teaching, etc., eventually if people want to continue learning from me, they have this one place that they can go.
For sure. I wonder, so how would you say how would you find the first cohort of super fans? Because I think a lot of people may have broadly like fans or like followers or like people you went to school with but now become your followers, but I think converting that into like paid clients, you kind of have to demonstrate, hey, we can like help you make more money or like help you be, I don't know, more attractive or something like that. How do you think about like building the first cohort of people that are actually would be willing to pay for services?
For me, it's really important that I respond to everyone who comments, that I respond to my DMs. I think having that personal touch is really important, and sometimes when you get big enough, people think that you're not going to respond or they feel like you're out of reach, but I think it's really important to
Mhm.
build those relationships, and so mine, I think it was over time, again, like, being consistent and then making it known that you are open to people reaching out to you in your LinkedIn post, like, comment or send me a DM, whatever it may be, and then those people find you, they respond to your newsletter. It's not gonna be an overnight thing, but over time, you start recognizing names, and again, you're responding and engaging and learning about them, and people buy your book, and you say you make sure to thank them and all these things, and so, it's a process, but I think really the thing that has helped me a lot is staying connected, not being so removed from the business where I have someone responding to all my messages. Like I still like being close to that part of things.
For sure. Um, I wonder, since like you already published a book, and how do you think about if you're like doing it again? um,
Mhm.
how would you think about, I guess, like if you're writing a second book, what would be your something that you do differently, whether it's like go to market or like actually creating the content itself? Like, how do you kind of like rethink about this whole process?
TBD on a second book. We'll have to wait for this first year to pass with this first book. But one thing I would do differently is I would start talking about the book even earlier. And my publisher, I met with them about 2 months before launch date, and they gave me a big goal in terms of pre-orders. And I was like, oh, okay, I better start talking about this now. But I felt like it was a lot of just kind of like adjusting on the spot because they told me the goal and then I pretty much like wanted to start promoting ASAP. I wished I had started planning a little bit more ahead of time, creating more, and I think the campaign still went off really well, but it would have been like less rushed if I had started promoting it a little bit earlier. And I think I felt very self-conscious too about talking about the book so much. So that's something as an introvert that I think many introverts can relate to, talking about it. And just
Mhm.
even if you're not an introvert, you're like it can feel uncomfortable, like, wow, I'm just talking about this book all the time. But people are not seeing all your posts. People see it, forget, and you got to remind them. And so I would feel more comfortable next time talking about it more and talking about it sooner.
How do you think about like sharing idea publicly? Obviously, there's like building in public that's happening, but also I feel like you have a really big following. So if your idea is like published out, people will like claim it for you, right? Like if someone's like taking this and run or like claiming this is like their idea, but like I think you have enough following that like people would be like, hey, I saw it here first, or like, this is like her story instead of someone else. Like I saw some of my friends publish something and then people would straight up copy the exact comment
Mhm.
to their website. This is like happening to my real friends who are top boys. So
Yeah.
I wonder, how do you think about like sharing an idea too early? Like, what if people just took it and run? Obviously, this is like very extreme case, I feel like, but
Sure.
always, like you said, like there's nothing original that's published online. So, but on the other hand, like, what if you publish something that's super unique and then like someone else just claim this is like their thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's bound to happen, right? Being on the internet. With that though, if someone is copying you, like that's the best that they're going to do to be able to copy. Like they don't have the way that you think, they don't have your ideas until you put them out in the world. Executing is a whole other, a whole other story. So maybe they're using your content to market or to be better. But now when the person hires them, they're not going to be able to deliver. So unfortunately, yeah, there's going to be bad actors out there, but I think ultimately like your moat is actually being able to do the work, to being the mind behind that idea. And so I remember this one person, it's a little bit different, but one person messaged me once on LinkedIn. They were like, this woman completely stole your whole profile. Like she just like copied all my experience and just like everything. But if someone came to her and said, oh, I want your help with something, she's not going to be able to help them with that or consult or strategize. Right. So there's, yeah,
Oh, that
weird
happened to
people
me
out
too.
there. Yeah.
That happened to me too, including my picture. I was like, bro, can you use a better picture? And I did report on LinkedIn, but
Yeah. So yeah, at the end of the day, like, yeah, people can copy, but they're not going to be able to deliver.
yeah, that's super insane. But anyway, so I wanna maybe like end with some personal questions and
Sure.
like we're about to hit the time. I want to be mindful of your time. So you have been very successful at building your own online presence. Is there someone that kind of inspired you to that on a day-to-day basis? And then do you have like a personal board of advisors when it comes to career growth?
Not an official board of advisors. So in the book, I talk about mentorship, sponsorship, and I talk about this concept called mentor moments,
Mhm.
where sometimes I feel like mentorship, we make it such like a formalized big thing, but really mentors and people just willing to help you come through networking and building relationships over time. So I
Mhm.
have many people, a lot of the roles that I've had previously have been very external facing. So I have like the internal people I'm connected with, the external people I'm connected with. So I feel very lucky that I have a lot of people I can turn to depending on what I need help with. So not like a specific board, but oh, I have a question about the business side of things or this presentation or how to market this. Like I have a lot of people I can turn to, which is great.
Mm. I totally agree with you. I'm like, I feel like if you can learn a lot of like small things from like different people and some like really hone in on like one person to rely on them to like help you with your entire thing.
Yeah,
How do you think about what is like one skill that you're constantly trying to improve?
sales.
Sales. Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
like
sales is hard, yeah.
so important. Um, okay, so we're gonna dive into a 30-second fire round. What's your favorite book?
Um, I like Think Faster, Talk Smarter by one of my mentors, Matt Abrahams.
Uh, who would you invite to your dinner party?
Say that again?
Who would you invite to your dinner party?
Oh my gosh, I would wanna invite I mean, no one's super famous, just all the people who I feel like have inspired like, business people, thought leaders who have inspired me, yeah, and taught me things, yeah.
Who made the biggest impact in your career?
I know this is supposed to be fast, there's, like, so many people. I would say okay, I'll go back way to the beginning. Candy Deemer, she went to, she's a Northwestern alum, such as my like me, and she got me my first internship, and so I feel like everything kind of built up from that first moment.
Uh, who would where can we find you outside of work?
Outside of work, I have been learning golf. So I guess the driving range, although I'm not good yet.
Oh yeah, I went to a Top Golf the other day. It was like very fun. But anyway, well, Lauren, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was such a wonderful conversation with you,
For
and
having me.
everyone should like shop this book if you haven't yet. Check it out. Hi, Daniel, by the way. Yeah, thank you so much. Let me quickly end stream. It's